Welcome to Life Recovery Today with Stephen Arterburn. In the next half hour, you'll obtain insights and tools to transform your life using the biblical principles found in the 12-step program. We believe everyone can benefit from a life recovery experience because we all have struggles in life. Struggles with addictions, food, depression, anxiety, and relationships, to name a few. You'll be encouraged to see how others have found a new way of life with hope for the future through life recovery. Your host is Steve Arterburn, founder of New Life Ministries and Women of Faith, author of over 100 books, and teaching pastor at Northview Church in Carmel, Indiana, one of the 20 largest churches in America. Steve is the co-editor of the Life Recovery Bible, the #1 selling recovery Bible. With over 3 million copies sold, this is the Bible given to inmates by Prison Fellowship and the Pew Bible for the Salvation Army. Now here's Steve.
Hi there, Steve Arterburn here, and welcome to Life Recovery Today. Amanda Anderson is my guest today. You're going to hear some great teaching from her, and it's all about control. You know, giving up control may be very, very difficult for us. Did I say may? It seems like it's always difficult for us. When you hear the word codependency, you know what we think it means. It's all, kind of you're dependent on the person that's dependent on something else. But co can also stand for control. That, let's say a person is addicted to alcohol, but this other person, the codependent, is dependent on being in control or trying to be in control. When we get ready for God to remove every shortcoming that we have, we still often will want to be in control, or we'll want to control what He's doing or how He's doing it, because, well, we're just so used to calling the shots. And many times we'll ask God to help us do things on our terms. But I have to tell you, a lot of people never ever surrender because of this word control. They just can't imagine life without them being the one that's in total control. Now, we may demand that changes happen on our timetable, of course, and if they do, then we say, well, in that way, we could maybe give some things up. But God needs us to be dependent on Him. He doesn't work that way. And no matter how much we think we can manipulate God, God will not be manipulated. You know what God responds to? God responds to humility. That's why humility, it's such an important part of step number 7. Step 7 says, we humbly ask God to remove our shortcomings. Now, we've spent a whole step getting ready for God to remove those shortcomings. But when we put our life in God's hands, when we finally let go of us controlling, we reshape ourselves or allow Him to reshape us as He sees fit. It's our humility that allows us to accept the fact that God is the Creator. Our new life may be similar to the one we left behind, entirely different, but God is the master craftsman. And whatever He does, we can trust that He will recreate our life beautifully once we get out of the way and let go. Well, Amanda Anderson, she knows all about how God works in recovery. And she's been part of our life recovery workshops there in Southern California for years. She's the author of a book with a great title, All My Friends Have Issues. And she's a great speaker. And I want to start today by having you listen to what Amanda says about the origins of codependency. I've heard her speak, and I really think that many of you will resonate with her. She's very bright. She's an excellent author and speaker. And her perspective is all from the perspective of codependency. That has been her struggle. And I've watched her as she has dealt with this, and I'll tell you, she knows how to not be codependent. So let's take a few minutes and let's listen to her insights on the topic of codependency. And then we'll come back and I'll have further comments about Amanda and her material on codependency.
Hi, I'm Amanda Anderson. I'm an author and a speaker at New Life Recovery conferences. And today I want to talk to you a little bit about codependency and the origins of codependency. Codependency is a relational dysfunction, a compulsive behavior that makes us attracted to people who are typically not able to offer us the intimacy and the emotional connection that we're looking for. Codependents tend to rescue and save in order to make themselves essential in relationships. So I'm drawn as a codependent to men and women who are needy and can validate my sense of needing to be a helper and a saver. And what's common for all codependents typically is a background that we can define as creating codependency in our early relationships. If you study the 12 steps of Codependence Anonymous, they will talk about we're trying to overcome emotional losses from our childhoods. So here's a checklist for you to think about if you think you may be struggling with codependency. Were any of these things present in my childhood or my family of origin? Most of us who struggle with codependency had a family of origin in which addictions or emotional or mental illness existed. So someone in the family was a draw for all of our fixing and was a more needy person, which set the family out of balance. This can even occur in a family where there's a single parent home where that parent needs more from the child than we would say is a healthy balance in a family. Most codependents were parentified as a child. They were asked to take on adult responsibilities as a child, to take on physical or financial or emotional responsibilities that really weren't theirs to take. Codependents often also had no witness to good boundaries. Their family didn't have good boundaries, or they were in a family where they were not allowed to have their own boundaries. So they might have been involved in emotional or physical abuse. And if I'm not allowed to have boundaries as a child, then I will go into life feeling bad when I set boundaries, which is a huge part of codependency. Codependents are also in their childhoods asked to tolerate something intolerable. This is a form of gaslighting. When something is happening in the family and the codependent is saying, this doesn't feel healthy, safe, or right to me, and the family is pushing back and saying, no, this is fine. This is totally okay. This is normal. This is healthy. And so what ends up happening to people raised in this kind of environment is they develop a mistrust of their instincts, their God-given instincts that could protect them. So if I have a parent who's emotionally abusive or extremely emotionally needy, and I sense in that isn't healthy, but another parent or authority figure in my life says, no, this is totally okay. Your parent is fine. What's happening to you is totally fine. Then you start to mistrust later in life when people are taking advantage of and abusing you. So that becomes normal and healthy. So what does this childhood bring us to as we grow up? Well, it gives us what we jokingly call in Codependence Anonymous a bad picker. You are drawn to needy, opportunistic, or immature people. They may not even be aware that they're drawing you into a codependent relationship, but it will feel normal to you. You will be attracted to people who need you desperately to rescue and save them, to help them with their trauma and drama, and that will feel normal to you until suddenly it doesn't. We start as rescuers and saviors, but we become controllers and manipulators. And it can get very ugly in a codependent relationship because instead of being able to have good boundaries and walk out of situations, we stay in those toxic situations in order to control and manipulate a person to try to make them be healthy. So here's a guideline for you to think about this. And I really encourage you, if you recognize yourself in any of these things, to find a Codependence Anonymous support group. Because on the other side of the 12 steps, you can find these essential intimate relationships that you're looking for. But here's a guideline to just close with today. Health says, I will judge from your behavior whether or not you are safe for me to be in a relationship with. Codependency says, I will try to change your behavior in order to make you safe to be with. We want you to be in safe relationships and be able to trust your God-given instincts. And if you're struggling, we're here for you with resources at New Life, and we hope that you will find the support that you need to recover from codependency.
Are you going through your struggles alone? Do you want someone to talk to help you through your pain? Do you feel like a failure when you relapse again, telling yourself, next time will be different? Don't walk this path alone anymore. Join a life recovery group today and be a person that your friends and family can be proud of. God created us to be in community, and we believe everyone can benefit from a life recovery experience. There are life recovery groups all over the country, and if there isn't one in your area, we can help you start one. Life Recovery brings recovery to you, right where you are. You'll take a journey with others to find healing and freedom. Whether you're looking to join a group or start one, New Life Ministries is here for you. Call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE or visit liferecoverytoday.net.
Welcome back. Well, she is just a wonderful communicator, and what a great, sweet spirit she has. But what she shared about those origins of codependency, those are insights we all need, because you need to recognize some of those signs of codependency in your own life if you're ever going to do anything about it. So I hope you'll take her advice and get some help if you see it in you, or maybe one of your friends. You need to reach out to them and help them. But Amanda's living proof that you don't have to stay stuck. Change isn't easy, but remember, it's possible. Now, let's hear her talk about fighting for your recovery.
Today I want to talk to you about taking a fighting stance in your recovery. So a few years ago I went to a self-defense class, and please understand when I'm done talking, you are not qualified to defend yourself physically. This is just a metaphor. But I went to a female self-defense class, and in it the instructor taught us something that to me really applied to recovery. What she said was, when a woman is attacked by a man and he is trying to grab her and pull her away, the instinct that most of us have is to pull this, just use our upper body strength to say, let me go, to resist just this way. And she said, basically, anatomically speaking, you are never going to have enough upper body strength to escape a full-grown man. So instead of pulling away, let me go, which is a passive victim stance, instead what you need to do is plant your feet and close the gap between you and your attacker. If they grab your arm, you run at them and break that connection on your arm, and then you run away. You never pull away, you close the distance between your attacker and yourself. Now this is a great spiritual model. If we look in Scripture, God never tells us to run away from the devil. Instead, what he says is resist him and he will flee from you. We need to understand that because of the grace of God and the power of God, when we enter a season of recovery, we can take a conqueror stance and face down our addictions. It's very complicated to understand because step one is a step of surrender. So the idea in 12-step recovery is not that I have to do this myself. However, we do not want to look at something as serious as chemical addiction or relational addiction and believe that we can take a victim stance and just kind of sneak away from it. Let me go, let me go. We have to plant our feet and name our addiction. We have to name the thing that has made our life feel unmanageable, and we have to be willing to take a fight stance against that. God gave us this inner free will, that rebel spirit, and we need to channel the rebel spirit that brought us to addiction and point it at our addiction. I will not be controlled by drugs and alcohol. I will not be controlled by pornography. I will not be controlled by relational addictions or abusive relationships. I am taking a stand against it. So 12-step is, we talk in 12-step about we wish we could find an easier, softer way, but we could not. Entering a season of recovery is not easy, and anyone who tells you it is selling you something false. But here's Ephesians 6 talks about the armor of God, and I want to remind you that God calls us to take a warrior stance. So we need to face our addictions. Denial is the enemy of addiction, and believing that we can do it all on our own is the enemy of recovery. We need to take a warrior stance. We need to take a place where we are going to fight for our recovery. Now, here's the thing about fighting for our recovery. It starts with surrender. I recognize in step one, I recognize that my life has become unmanageable. That is a rebel cry that we say, this has to stop. I recognize that my life has become unmanageable. In step two, we come to believe that a power greater than ourselves, our good God, can restore us to sanity, and we plant our feet firmly on the truth that God can restore us to sanity. And in step three, we turn our will and our lives over to the care of God. And I love the word care of God in step three, because what that means is we don't just give ourselves over to a God who doesn't care about us or is just going to manipulate or control us, but we surrender into a God that cares for us and places his protective custody around us. So that's why we can stand strong. When we go into steps 4 and 5, we take a fearless moral inventory. That is fighting language, where we have to write down everything that we see that needs to change in our lives that we hope that God can remove from us. And it is a process. I don't know anyone who did it without fear, but we do it with courage, which is overcoming fear. We write those things down because they're essential. So the final thing I want to talk about in taking a fighting stance against recovery is we have to fight our greatest enemy, and that is denial. We need to fight the urge to cover up the issues that we're facing. In my community of recovering addicts, we talk about how do we define unmanageability. And unmanageability is present whenever I am minimizing or maximizing what's really going on. If I have problems with alcohol, I'm going to minimize to you how much I'm actually drinking. If I have a problem with dysfunctional relationships, I'm going to minimize how often I actually call that person or drive by their house at night to see if they're home. I'm going to start lying about how often I'm doing the thing that is unmanageable in my life. That's a sign of it. So we have to enter into a community fearlessly where we are going to be an open book. We're going to start telling the truth about where we are spending our time, with whom we are spending our time, and what is really going on in our hearts and our minds and our lives. So if you are ready to take these fearless, brave steps toward recovery, we're here for you at New Life with resources and help. And we are excited to see you take that power stance against the enemy of addiction and come out as a conqueror.
So now that Amanda has shared about fighting for your recovery, her fighting for her recovery, what are you willing to do for your recovery? And of course, willingness is the key component in recovery. We are willing to surrender, and then we just have to continue to be willing. It's a powerful thing. Finally, I want you to hear her thoughts on you taking a turn in self-care. Because you know what? After you've struggled for so long, been in so much pain, it really is your turn for self-care.
And today I want to talk to you about self-care as an essential part of our recovery from any form of addiction or trauma. I'm also someone who suffered from anxiety and depression for about a decade, and I found some of the relief from depression through my recovery from codependency, which was a root cause of the anxiety that I experienced for many, many years. One of the things that people often struggle with when they struggle with depression is the idea that small things cannot solve the large problem of depression. If you are under a sense of grief and being overwhelmed or overwhelmed with addiction, we think that the small habits that are healthy for most people will not solve this huge issue in our soul. But I'm here to encourage you that God gave us a prescription for a healthy mind, a healthy body, and a healthy soul. And they're found in small, simple things that are pointed to us even in creation. So the first thing I want to talk to you about in your recovery is that we need to respect day and night. We need to respect the fact that God created us to manage life in 24-hour increments, that we are meant to sleep when it is dark and be up when it is light. That sounds like a ridiculous and obvious point to make in recovery, but did you know that your brain only makes serotonin while you're sleeping? And serotonin is the brain chemical that's responsible for mood elevation. So if you are not sleeping when you're depressed, it is only going to cause more depression. If you're struggling with addiction and you're not sleeping, then your brain is not being recalibrated to health. The second thing we need to talk about is that we have to get sunlight. It actually provides us with essential nutrients, and it's also a mood elevator. So we need to talk about just getting out in small increments. I'm not talking about going to the beach for hours and hours at a time, but to get sunlight and movement together. Not a CrossFit workout, but just moving, getting out to take walks, to be out in creation. Jesus talked about consider the birds of the air and the lilies of the field. And although that sounds like, how can that possibly cure everything that ails me? Jesus promises that it will. So I want to encourage you to get outside, get some movement, get some light. Then we also need physical touch. Our body releases certain neurochemicals that mood elevate by being cuddled. Scientists call it the cuddle hormone. So we need to ask for hugs. We need to hold hands with loved ones. We need to, even if you have the financial ability to pay for a massage, we need to get back into our bodies and be rooted in our bodies for self-care. And then we also need to talk about media addiction. When we are filling our brains with agitated media, it is really dangerous for our moods and for our health and our spiritual well-being. We live in a culture that is called the outrage culture. We are actually addicted to media that makes us feel angry and anxious. And so we need to limit time on social media. We need to limit time in front of the news. We need to limit our time that we watch crime dramas or anything that's actually designed to raise our cortisol levels and our stress. We need to care for ourselves by taking in less negative input. And then self-care, the most important thing about self-care is that we need to develop some good boundaries with people. In our recovery, we need to recalibrate our appetites and our needs, because what we are drawn to sometimes are unhealthy things. We are drawn to stressful situations and stressful people. So we need to start creating boundaries around negative people in our lives, even if those negative people are very close family members and friends. So we need to develop boundaries around our time. We need to spend less time on the phone with people who are pouring negativity out on us or who are always calling for rescue. And we need to invest in relationships and spend time with people that make us feel good about ourselves and the world. So those are all things we can do for ourselves. But the most important thing that I want to leave you with today is part of self-care is recognizing when caring for yourself is not going to be enough. There's a beautiful story in the Gospels where Jesus is speaking to a crowd, and a group of friends climb on top of the roof where Jesus is speaking, dig a hole in the roof, and lower their friend down in front of Jesus so that he can be healed. And I want to tell you, and I did not make up this beautiful phrase, that it is okay when sometimes it is your turn to be lowered down on the mat. There are times that we need rescue and we need to cry out for help. So I encourage you that the final aspect of self-care is asking for care from others. We here at New Life are all about community. We want you to get into a support group. We want you to get into community, and we want you to reach out to us when you need help, because none of us were meant to be in this world alone. We need other human beings to help us, and it is okay if it is your turn to be lowered through the roof. Take that care for yourself, and we're here to help you.
Life recovery isn't just about making the courageous choice to give up an addiction or dependency. It's a journey towards health, wholeness, and becoming your very best you. If you need resources to help you in your journey, we can help. There are many life recovery resources that you can do on your own, with a group, or with your church. We have Bibles, workbooks, and devotionals that you can use to work your recovery right where you are. That's the beauty of life recovery. To learn more or to get the Life Recovery Bible or any other life recovery resource, visit liferecoverytoday.net or call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE. 1-800-NEW-LIFE.
You know, for every one of us, there are some really important moments in life that can change the destiny going forward. These are often times when it's not that we did some big thing, but what we did was we confronted just how powerless we have proved ourselves to be over events, dependencies, habits, addictions. These moments, well, they're either going to destroy us or they're going to set us on a course that's a much, much better direction. You know, the life of Saul, who of course later was known as Paul, Saul of Tarsus, he had, well, it was a big moment. After Jesus ascended into heaven, Saul took it upon himself to rid the world of all these Christians. And on the road to Damascus, on that mission to destroy Christianity and anyone believing it, this light from heaven suddenly shone down around him, and he fell to the ground, and he heard a voice saying, "Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me?" Well, Saul was confronted with the fact that his life wasn't as perfect as he quite thought, because he was trying to follow all those rules that really will get you nowhere. Self-righteousness had been Saul's trademark. But by letting go of his illusions of power, he became one of the most powerful men ever, the Apostle Paul. If we become willing, we will be led into recovery and into a whole new way of life. And that way of life, well, you never know where it's going to lead. But you have this confidence. Once you've dealt with some of these issues that have been with you since childhood, some of these losses that you've had to grapple since early life, you come to understand, I'm going to be okay with the help of God and with the help of people around me. Now, if you're watching this and you're alone and isolated, you need people, you need a group. The least you could do is be on one of our virtual life recovery groups. And you can find out all about that by calling 1-800-NEW-LIFE or going to newlife.com. But God does not want you to be saddled with shame, to be paralyzed with fear, to be obsessed with anger. God wants you to be free. It's God's recovery, and it's your recovery when you cooperate with the God of recovery. Thanks for joining me for Life Recovery Today. If you need some help, 1-800-NEW-LIFE. And don't forget, if you don't have one of these Life Recovery Bibles, it could change everything. God's truth is right here.
Thanks for joining us for Life Recovery Today with Stephen Arterburn. We hope this program has helped you integrate God's truth and wisdom into your recovery journey. This program is brought to you by New Life Ministries, and it's your support that keeps this program on the air. When you contact us for any reason, be sure to let us know that you watch on NRB. Call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE or go to liferecoverytoday.net. Please join us again next week for more Life Recovery Today.